You just see someone who falls down and disability and bleeding out, and you can stop it. I don't see how people like it without responsibility. I don't think that you should be on just do
I was still up.
And you don't step up and grab her and fight the people. That's a moral problem when you do that. It's a sin and it should be your Friday, or whatever kind of Friday, however it is you feel today. I hope that you're only glad that it's Friday and the same way that you're glad that Wednesday is Wednesday or Monday is Monday. Because if you hate your week, you hate your life. Because that's all that adds up to life. So if you're just trying to get it over with, the good parts go by while you're waiting for the good part. Let's pray. Father in heaven, whatever it is that we truly need, what we need to thrive, whatever that is, we ask for it. Not so much that it's in our way, not so much that it's heavy and we can't move forward, but enough so that we can just thrive and no more. In Jesus' name. I want to, just for a couple minutes, just recap this sort of three-way spirituality thing. And I want to suggest it to you as a possibility to experiment with, to write about. But it's not the only approach. There's lots of approaches, and it's not the only Christian approach. I think there's plenty of Christians who wouldn't even be comfortable with it. I think that they should take a serious look as to why, but certainly legitimate to prefer a different way. But just to review, it's really easy as Christians, for some reason, it has become really easy, if not the default, to experience Christianity and even Christian spirituality as a platform from which to point a finger of judgment at people who are not doing spirituality or doing life or doing belief the same way. I think it would be strange if anybody here has not seen some aspect of Christianity or of your church that involves using it as some sort of platform to point the finger at other people and what's wrong with them, where they're different than us or you. In fact, that finger almost never even continues to point outside. It draws smaller and smaller circles, builds a higher and more remote platform, and starts pointing even at the wrong kind of Adventist or the wrong kind of Christian. How hard would it be to find a Seventh-day Adventist who experiences as perhaps one of their most defining beliefs what is wrong with Catholics? How many Adventists would take their preacher to task if too many months go by and they haven't heard a Revelation 13 sermon about the beast? Many Adventists could not separate the idea of the three angels' messages from the gospel, from why other Christians are wrong and we're right. So I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. I'm just pointing it out and asking if I'm the only one who sees it. And to suggest, even if that's that's the one string they have on their guitar, that maybe they string it with the rest of the strings and expand their ideas a little bit. And one of those things is a device that whenever a person feels this, they can notice that there's three fingers pointing. Well, so what can I do besides just point my finger at other people? Well, here's three things that you can do. You could do these three things. One, you could work on, literally, and I'm not saying it'll get you to heaven. You're not going to go to hell if you fail to do this. It's not the reason you'll go to hell. You're saved not by doing any of these three things. You're saved by what Jesus did, and by accepting that. That's the basis of salvation. However, that doesn't mean that God feels badly about you trying to do good stuff. How absurd is that? No, I don't want to have any works because then I'm not really a gospel Christian. This would be a good thing to do. I can't do works. Here's some things you can work at. You can actually put out and see what comes of it. One, experiment with transforming your very consciousness into a ceaseless prayer. So that for you, your mental life, your very awareness, that voice that has that insane conversation in your head with yourself, like the one in my head with myself, becomes not talking to yourself. That it becomes intentionally and in a disciplined way until finally it's 100% of your consciousness, waking or sleeping, that you're not thinking about talking to yourself or just running your silent mouth off inside your head. You're actually, even automatically, habitually, as your way of doing awareness, talking to God. Even the automatic thoughts. And you're always in the background aware of that because you practice it so much in the foreground, it becomes who you are in your consciousness. Tell me that if Jesus was standing here bodily, and you knew it was Jesus, and you're talking with him, you would say, hey, Jesus, you know what? I'm going to do a filthy thing right now. It's nasty. So, yeah, hang tight. I know you're right with me on this. You want to do this with me? I mean, who would do that? I think it would be quite uncommon. Jesus, I'm going to send a text to somebody to diss them until they feel bad about themselves. Well, you want to add something to it? Well, we got them going here. I got a thread started. You want to run them down here on Facebook with me? You want to tell somebody here how stupid they are? Put them down. What would you do with an afternoon, if you were spending it with Jesus, walking right there with you, and it's going to stay with you after sight the whole afternoon, what would you do that afternoon? And what would you not do that afternoon? If Jesus is in your consciousness, that's even more intimate. And that's even more invasive. It's even more in your business. And it would affect your business. How would you conduct business? If Jesus was sitting in a chair that he pulled up next to yours behind the desk, how competitive would you be against someone else trying to earn a living? How competitive would you be on the basketball court if Jesus put on a jersey and stood there saying, what do we do? Well, you try to defeat them. That's what we're doing here. Huh? Oh yeah, come on, it'll be fun. Would you do that if that's the afternoon you had with Jesus? Personally, I couldn't even play a chess game against someone if Jesus was sitting there watching me. While I try everything I can to cause that other person's defeat, even at a game. I couldn't bring myself to do it in his presence. Think about that. That's not a do and don't list. That's not a no-no list. It's not another list of taboos. It's simply, what would you do if he was right there? It's up to you. 2, that would be influenced by actually internalizing and fully mastering the record that we have. Minimal though it is, short, so very short, in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I mean, unfortunately, it's tiny. It is a little tiny story told 4 different ways. Each one of those 4 ways tells a little differently and puts some detail the other one doesn't have, or leaves some out that the other one includes. But that's all we got. If you actually believe that Jesus was God on earth, demonstrating how to live as a human, if you actually believe that, then let's hear a case for how anything could be more important that's ever been put to language that we have access to. What do we have that even begins to measure up to the value, the importance of those few words? Yet there's not one person here, none of us has less than probably 100 times or 1,000 times what's in those Gospels completely memorized. We have more crap memorized than the amount of words in the Gospels. Cold, hard memory. Just nonsense.
But personally, I feel like if you just want words to memorize, not like completely, that doesn't make them any closer to God, or because you can't say that would actually change their lifestyle or what that can do.
I would assert that it would be very difficult to be unchanged by that.
But
I agree with you that it doesn't necessarily change somebody. They could memorize it to use to hurt people. But I don't think it means, now I've memorized the Gospels, I can go to heaven, but I was going to go to hell before I memorized it. Now that I can check that off, Jesus noticed it, now he'll let me in. It has no power to save you from being lost, because you don't need to do it to be saved. Would it be possible to memorize that much of the story of Jesus' life without being a different person now that you've memorized it? I'd say it would be pretty much impossible. What we memorize when we memorize crap makes us crappier people. It is the database that we draw from for how we compare everything else that we take in for new information. And as we make relationships between everything in our memory, we put stuff in there that's bad. We're not able to be unchanged. It actually, when you make a memory of something, it physically changes the structure of your brain.
I get that, but isn't it possible for someone to go in there with the intention of memorizing this memories and not to want to change? And because of that, they automatically will be changed very hard.
They'd still be changed. Yeah, I think they'd still be changed. I think that it's not some sort of magic power, but just the nature of the information. It just influences you. If you, for instance, if you get like Netflix and you do a binge watch of every season of something like, say, Friends or Gross Anatomy, or Grey's Anatomy. If you binge that whole thing, like get a DVD box set and do it on Netflix, you have identified with a character. You probably have identified somebody as the main character that you identify with most. And then you experience all of that, your values are changed. If you do a binge thing with the Gospels, identifying with the character, the main character, I can't fathom that it doesn't do something to change you. Now, does it make you just like Jesus? Or now you have a cape and or a robe or whatever, and now you walk on the water? No, probably not. But I would say, absolutely, the more exposure you have to it, the more you become like it. No matter what it is. No matter what it is. Even if you wish that you wouldn't and you went to it not to, you couldn't help but be changed somehow by it. You might find that you disagree with it even more. You might say, as you read the Gospels, you might honestly say, I recognize now that the value system, that the philosophy that Jesus, that the way of being with people and living as a successful or unsuccessful human being that Jesus demonstrates, I don't want that for my life. Because it would mean, basically, number one, I'm a financial failure in my culture. Because you will be. You will be. You can't give everything away as fast as you get it and be financially successful. That's nonsense. Jesus, if you read that story really carefully, and if you memorize it, it's hard not to read it so carefully that it crawls inside of you and makes trouble. You'll see a value system that doesn't fit in our culture. It's the point. So you could read it and be changed by saying, I am going to stop being a hypocrite. I'm going to stop pretending and using the name when I'm not willing to take the value system. I disagree with Jesus. I want instead to have a Ferrari. I want instead to get with 20 people that are like supermodel status and have my way with them, while I'm still young. That's what I want. And lots of good variety in the thing. You may say that. And God died to protect your right to do that. Because that's one of the other things. Jesus doesn't force. Jesus respects people, and he demonstrated how to respect people's choices. Choices for lifestyle. And here's what he didn't do. He didn't do this. He said, neither do I condemn you. Okay? Neither do I condemn you. So it'll change you. If nothing else, it'll make you go, man, why do I continue to say, I follow Jesus, There's no way I'm going to follow that nonsense. You might say that. That's an important decision. But probably the worst thing you can do, I mean, Adventists fortunately spend a good amount of time in Revelation. Revelation portrays God as saying, you know what, you want to know who makes me sick? You want to know who makes me sick? Like when you get nasty food in your mouth, it's like, oh, that's rotten. Spit it out. People that claim one thing, and they keep claiming it, but they don't mean it. That was how the church at Laodicea was like in the description of the churches. So maybe memorizing the Gospels, maybe even just reading, and most Christians probably haven't even just read it clear through. That's a joke. It's ridiculous. Think about how silly that is. Oh yeah, I follow him. Have you read the Gospels? I've heard some of them. I've had a couple memory verses. Now that's nonsense. It's ridiculous. You would do better research before you took a job about what you'd be working for. And you get more junk in the stack of stuff when you apply for a job from the corporation. You read more junk online about your career and that company than what you would read in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Which should tell us something about how we really functionally value that information and Jesus. I mean, honestly. And then, in addition to putting that in there so that it can work when you're not even thinking about it, it works in the part that actually drives you and your desires and your character more than your conscious mind. In addition to that, it can be experimented with what we see Jesus doing in Mark 10 with that certain rich guy that came. Looking at people with true compassion, applying the best that we know of the kind of knowledge that we already actually have, that when we entertain it actively about people, brings compassion from our insides. Thinking about the fact that each person honestly just wants to get a good feeling and make those bad feelings go away. And realizing that each person already today has thought about that one thing that hurts them the most when they remember it. And all that other list of things we talked about. So that you know when you look at each person, if I knew what hurts your heart, I'd have trouble not crying. If I could just sit there and watch a movie of it with you, I probably couldn't keep my eyes dry. And every single person you look at, ever, not even just with your eyes, but with your mind's eye, with your consideration, to know that about them, and then to simply go through the verb, the real action of saying, I love you. To every stranger, to every stupid stray cat, because it's alive and feels and is a creature. To anything that has life, to just be in a habit of considering what's it like to be that person or that creature. I love you. I love you. I love you. To make that your habit. How hurtful of a human being are you going to be if you make that your life habit, your all-the-time habit? How often are you going to do somebody up on purpose if you live like that? Will it get you into heaven? No. But it's sure going to make me a lot happier to share heaven with you. It'll probably make you a lot happier if I get there and that's how I behave instead of I behave like a selfish fool. And then at the last second on my deathbed, I claim salvation, which it'll get me there. Let's keep on the cross. But when I get there, I'm still going to be kind of rugged. I'm still be, okay, well, let's just put him over here for a little bit until he can learn the culture a little bit. Not only that, You can chase Ferraris, and you can chase your sexual fantasies, you can chase the big house, you can chase the prestige of a great title, and power, and admiration. You can chase having American Express Platinum, so you can just go and you know you can pay it off every month, so you just go buy things till you're happy. Ha ha. Good luck with that. When somebody gets the carrot, you know the old idea of having like a pole with a string and a carrot on it, and you ride on the back of a donkey, and you hold it out there, and it keeps walking for the carrot because it's stupid. It doesn't even get the idea that it's moving it forward as it goes. And that really does work. A jackass will follow the carrot. For real. They do. I mean, you can go on YouTube and probably there's pictures of it happening if you're fresh out of donkeys. You can probably go on YouTube. Somebody probably put it there. When somebody in this life gets the carrot, they're 28, or they're 29, or whatever, and their album does go platinum with their whatever amazing art they've got coming out of their mouth or out of their fingers, whatever. It goes platinum, and every little middle schooler is screaming when they see you. You know, when you get off the airplane at the airport, it's all, you know, you're a superstar. Wow, wowee. How often, when you get that, or you get the Super Bowl ring, or your IPO makes you an umpty gazillionaire when you're 33? What's next? Cocaine is next. How often is cocaine next? Alcohol. Whatever drug you can start eventually shooting. And then how many of those people kill themselves? Bye-bye, Whitney Houston. Bye-bye, Michael Jackson. Bye-bye, Kurt Cobain. Look at the NFL's stars. They got all of that. And they're fooling around, killing somebody, or beating their wife or something. Or killing themselves. Driving so fast, drinking until they have an accident and die. I mean, how many of the real superstars go down like that? You get it, and here's the problem with getting it. You realize, I have it. It's the only thing that I believed once I got it, I'd then be happy. Now I have it, and I don't feel happy any more than I did before I got it. Now what do I look for? Now I can't even chase the stupid carrot. You realize that it won't do it and that you've invested everything and that you actually won the game, and it doesn't mean anything to win the game. It means nothing. It means nothing. There's a lot of people who've gone out to their $80,000 car and closed the garage door and turned it on and sat in the seat and waited until the carbon monoxide overtook. That works a lot better with older cars. But it'll still get you though. It takes a lot longer with newer cars. So what I'm saying is, Jesus, you will see, made that point a lot of times, telling people, do what you want. I'm telling you that will make you happy. But if that's what you want to do for now, go ahead. But if you win the game, you're going to realize that you were playing a game that wasn't worth playing. So go ahead. 3 things. Are those the only things? They are absolutely not the only things. Seventh-day Adventism has a rich list of actual spiritual practices, spiritual disciplines, things you can do for spirituality, things you can experience for spirituality. One challenge is if you're not new to Seventh-day Adventism and you came up in Seventh-day Adventism and you saw people going through the forms, doing the behaviors, but managing to get almost nothing out of them, then when you hear the list, you think, yeah, I know that, and that leaves me bored. So that bores me. It doesn't thrill me.
I just want to hear what Liam said. Transport prayer, Nate Thomas said, record Matthew, Luke, and John like to memory. What was the third point? I didn't quite catch it.
That active loving. That from Mark 10, what Jesus did with that rich young ruler, he looked at him the way God looks at the heart. And then he loved him. If I love you, can you feel it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I could. Obviously, be kind, nice.
If I detest you or you disgust me, and when I look at you, I feel disgust. It makes you feel bad, doesn't it? Even if I don't say anything, you know. I don't know how you know. I mean, I know some theories, but I don't really know how you know. Whether it's just my facial expressions, or it's my pheromones, or it's some sort of resonance with energy that is quantum mechanically correlating with my very consciousness at a neurobiological level, and then it actually impacts yours. Some people think that, and they're not that cookie. They're eminent physicists. Some people who believe that today. I don't know though, or whether it's one of those things like my dead elder, very conservative man that asked me sort of so nobody else could hear. Pastor, if I ask God to tell somebody something that I want to convey to them, could he do it? So I don't know I don't know. It might be, and it probably is something we can't even imagine that makes it so that our hearts are connected, that our brains are connected. I don't know. But I've conducted the experiments. And that's what the only thing I invite people to do is go ahead, give it a shot. See if when you do it, you don't have some things that are like, okay, that was improbable. And then just note them. You don't have to make any conclusions. Just watch and see what happens if you actually do that. I mean, that's the test I put it to. Immediately, I didn't think, I thought of this. It must be a fact. Right? I said, I'm going to try this. And I tried it, and it was a shocker to me. And other people watching said, I'm not going to quote him exactly because it makes people uncomfortable to use vulgarity in class. But they were sheriff's deputies, and they saw it happen, and it was like, I will just paraphrase. They asked me, what was that? Only with more words and more crayons out of the box. Seventh-day Adventism, though, has some things about it that are rich. And if I went to people who had no experience with Seventh-day Adventism, they don't even have to be Christians. If I would say, let me show you some of the things from my tradition, they would look at it like it was some dazzling, powerful, New Age technique that they have to really start trying right away. Spiritually practiced, the Sabbath could be outrageously powerful. Outrageously powerful. Just imagine, no matter what else is happening in your life, if you're like going through the hard stuff to get to some of the good stuff, school, for instance, like you said, it's finally Friday. For whatever reason, if you are in relationship hell right now, you're just you're just metaphorically licking the dog in terms of your social life. If you have a job where people disrespect you, people you serve and the people that supervise you, they disrespect you and they devalue you. If where you live is depressing and unpleasant and you don't have enough money, or if you're chasing the carrot and you're winning, you're doing a good job. You do have, maybe not a Ferrari yet, but you've got a nice BMW. And it's not old, and it's in top form, and you've got a swimming pool, and you've got a closet full of designer clothes, and you've got a bank account that you have to hire people to keep an eye on. Good deal. No matter who you are, if you say all that stuff that happens 6 days a week, go ahead, pursue whatever you want. I'm working in a laboratory, or I'm working on this thing, or I'm welding, or I'm working on cars, or I'm teaching second graders, or whatever your deal is. I'm treating patients. I'm an oncologist. I'm an ER nurse. Whatever your deal is. If you would say, I don't care what happens, 1 day a week, I set it aside, and I am off limits for common stuff. I am out of bounds for that stuff, because what I'm doing is I am, with my mind, I am trying to spend that whole time focusing on the big picture. I'm trying to think about what makes reality. I'm trying to really contemplate, at the frontier, not just reading other people's tired theories. I'm contemplating how everything came about, where we come from, and where we're going. I'm contemplating, trying to come up with ways no one's ever thought of before, so that just one person at a time, you could just do some stuff or change the way you do the same things you do anyway, and it changes the world. Like a virus that just spreads. There are an infinite number of ideas for social constructs and spiritual constructs. An infinite number of ideas. And I don't care how long human beings have been having ideas, we haven't scratched the surface of infinite ideas. And a portion, an infinite number of those infinite ideas, if anyone thinks of them, can be too powerful for anyone to prevent from changing the world. The whole world. And your mind is as good as any to come up with one. Why don't you dedicate 1/7 of your entire life so that every week you work on that project? I don't care what else you got going, put it aside 100% and say, I'm doing this. I'm gonna think of a way. If I have to try to figure out with my mind how to get information from outside of what information has ever been part of humanity before, I'm doing that. I'm going to figure out how to plug in, how to get a connection, or how to just think of it with the way I'm free, whatever you want. And then all week, while I'm going through my regular routine, I'm data gathering. I am gathering information and testing those ideas that I came up with on that day that I take out and go to the mental laboratory, to the spiritual laboratory. Now I'm out in the field for 6 days. What does it mean to take a day out, and what could you do with it? If I'm journeying through the forest And I mean, I'm in the serious forest, like Northwestern Territories, somewhere in the Northwestern Territories. Just thousands and thousands of miles of just big trees. You can walk around and you can think you're following your compass and all of that. But how valuable would it be at intervals when you see a hill, climb up on that hill, or if you don't even come to a hill, you climb up what looks like the tallest tree in the area, and then you look and try to get a lay of the land and see the other features that stick up and where you might want to go to next. At intervals, so that you reference whether you're going in circles or whether you're moving towards something. Because when you're down in the forest, you can't see those prominent places 5 or 10 miles away. You can't see 100 miles away. When you climb a hill and you can see where the curvature of the earth drops down, you need that perspective. And if you spend 7 days wandering around the forest, it's not available. It's not available. Your creativity is the only limit to how you can take 1 day out of every single week and treat it like none of that other stuff that imposes on you is allowed. You have boundaries. That's just one. In imagining each of the parts that seem very common in Seventh-day Adventist spirituality, one trick that I have found helpful is to try to find in the way that it got established, if it comes from the Bible, or it comes from Ellen White's writings, or it's a Christian tradition that came up a few hundred years ago. Explore what that part of the culture meant in that time, and figure out what today means something similar. We'll talk about that in terms of humility in the next week. Okay? We will not have our midterm until Wednesday. Not till Wednesday, because everyone's still going to be figuring out whether it's going to be the Republicans or the Democrats that take us down the drain for the next 4 years. I don't want to blend those things. It'll already be a foregone conclusion. We'll know which route is. Have a wonderful Saturday.